Good morning, viewers. Welcome to Frankly Speaking with Vibhuti Jha. This is the 4th of July weekend, and I'm sure everybody is enjoying this much needed rest. Not that coronavirus did not give us enough in terms of tension and whatever else, but this is a much better time in terms of recovery, recuperation, and coming to terms with the whole scenario. So, happy 4th of July, and look forward to you having a wonderful weekend and a new year beginning from today until the next 4th of July. So we can always say there is Happy New Year every time we celebrate something. So today we are going to talk about varieties of items, like it is a potpourri of items. The world is full of so many political and social upheavals that sometimes you wonder what exactly is going on. The famous Hindi movie, there was a character who used to say, "Ye kya ho raha hai?" So, like this, "Ye kya ho raha hai?" Something that we need to point and ponder and come to a conclusion about. To discuss this entire potpourri of items, I have great pleasure in welcoming Mr. Aditya Satsangi ji, whom you know, who is globally famous for his pathology work, in which he is completely revolutionized with his writings and thought provocations and thought statements in way to look at things from a different perspective. So Aditya ji, welcome to this show. In addition to all the books that you are writing, and you have recently you have completed a book, let's also know which is the next one. So make a declaration as to what will be your new book. But we begin the conversation with something remarkably important. And that's us Indians, us Hindus. We are under constant barrage of attacks. This is not that I saw when I came in this country in 1991. We were much appreciated lot of immigrants. Now we see that we have to virtually defend everything Hindu. Sanatan Dharma is our eternal principle. We have to convince others that we are not violent people, that we are not segregationists, we are not racist. And we have to defend that. What is going on here? So, Aditya ji, we have been talking about religious, Sanatan, Dharma, and everything else. But let's begin this conversation with one beginning point. Is Sanatan Dharma relevant in this remarkable 21st century? And I will preface it by saying that from my point of view, the relevance of Sanatan Dharma was never felt so much more than it is felt today. Your thoughts?
First of all, thank you for inviting me to your show. Vibhuti you are a very respected person in our community in North America. And so your question is very pertinent. And according to me, I've been doing this work in the US ever since I came to US, you can say, because one of my teachers told me USA has only two purposes. One is sense gratification, and the second is to spread the good values, Sanatan Dharma. And that's what I've been engaged, just spreading the good values. And I never saw this country just to enjoy or to just live a life of abundance. I never thought that way. First of all, the Sanatan Dharma is becoming more relevant today in the USA and where we live. The reason I'm saying is that more and more people are tired to be told. And the biggest fault, the biggest fault of the one book cultures is that everyone tells you what to do. People invade your personal life. In Sanatan Dharma is one culture which makes you truly independent. We are celebrating 4th of July, and 4th of July is an Independence Day of USA. But we ourselves are not independent from our own mind and the intellectualism that has been filled our mind. And Sanatan Dharma makes us free from that. So the real freedom is Sanatan Dharma and freedom for the soul. And that's what Sanatan Dharma is big. Why Sanatan Dharma is becoming more popular and will become more popular in the US.
That's so very well said that the relevance can't be more pertinent today than it ever was, because there is a global cry for freedom. Like there was Arab Spring was a call for freedom. Everybody talks about azadi, freedom, right? But what does freedom mean? And as you very pertinently brought out this subject matter of one book theory, where we are being told this is the way and not everything else is not the right way. So we are the only unique belief system that talks about authentic freedom to pray or not to pray, or to believe in what you want to believe in. Even, even what do you call it? Even the LGBT community, atheists are welcome. Everybody is welcome in our frame of reference. Yet we are under constant attack. What is it that makes us vulnerable? Why is it that the one book theorists are not able to accept our freedom the way we are talking about? Is it something that we suffer from? Or is it our lethargy? Is it our mental apathy? Is it because of our colonial mindset, the colonized mindset? What has happened to us? Why we are, to use the beautiful Hindi word, why we are always so shithal?
You gave the answer in your question, actually. Uh, the the Sanatan Dharma makes us free, and we have to drop our colonial mindset that we have to seek approval. We don't have to seek approval from anyone. We have to fearlessly practice our faith and our culture in this country, chosen country of residence, and then others have to make up their mind. And the second thing is, the oppositions to Sanatan Dharma are only in the mind, not on the ground. My few in universities, uneducated people in the universities who are acting as professors, they can say anything they want. I call them illiterate, educated illiterates. Now, when those people say something, we have to just ignore it, because the more you give them importance, the more is they're going to be important, because you're giving them value to their words. We have to learn to let the dogs bark and move on. The caravan must move on. And I always say low hanging fruits. There are a lot of people who are interested in this knowledge. We need to focus on them, because, and I know I totally agree with some of the stand viewpoints that we have to oppose them, but understand one thing: opposition is done to a equal. They are not equal to us. So we by opposing them, we are making them equal to us. We have to do our work and let the dogs bark, and let us continue fearlessly, like our culture of samskara, our culture of garbhadan samskara, our Sanskriti. We have to continue what we are doing. There are more than 560 temples in North America, and we have to continue expanding more and more temples. Our target should be that we open 1,000 in next 2 years and double it by 4,000, because temples are an important source of our culture, from which even Americans learn. You will never find an American or any Western person visiting a Hindu temple and not getting a change of heart. It has never happened. You are a testimony to that fact also. So we have to stop reacting, and we have to start acting, not on others, on ourselves. Our practice of our culture is the most important message that we can send to all the negative spreaders.
Now, you brought in some very interesting words, like not reacting, but I believe in responding.
That's right.
You said ignore the university professors because they are the barking dogs, let them bark. We are both dog lovers, and we know when the dog barks, he barks for some purpose, right? It is the nature of the elephant who doesn't care. He walks away because he's too mighty, but he walks away from the barking dog, leaving them where they are. The question is, do we know our path? Because majority of the Hindus, which I see it, and you may have probably seen it too, that we are kind of dhimmis. We like to be like them, the colonial mindset. It has been instilled and we have been brainwashed into believing. So the herd, the elephant leader, has to now stop to see, hey, where is my herd gone? Or is it playing with the dogs? So put it in that perspective, the animal part of it. I'm a great lover of animal. I have a thought on it, which I will talk to you later about that. But the point of the matter remains is that somewhere along the line, we have to correct the path. The leader has to set the agenda. Are we missing out on it? Because the narrative building is key for us. It is taught, it is written all over. The Jainism, Buddhism, and Sikhism were created in defiance or to oppose Hinduism, which you and I know is not true. It is a reflection of the true practice of freedom in our faith, that should you want to do something, go ahead and do it. Nobody came to them or nobody charged on them to eliminate them. There may have been internecine battles at times for supremacy, which is a classic human behavior. But the point of the matter remains, and I am a believer in responding. I am not a believer in reacting, because you react out of fear and concern. You respond with knowledge and wisdom. But that's the distinction I make between reaction and response. So the university professors, whom you said that they are, I call them, they suffer from the severe disease of the 21st century called educated incapacity. They may be just literates, they have no education and understanding of the challenge, but it is there, whether we like it or not. It's there. Can we afford to ignore is the question. And at what point in time must we intercede and correct the path? Whether it is about, why do we have to always protect and defend ourselves? Why do we always have to defend Brahmanism? Why do we have to defend our way of life all the time? Sanatan is the most peaceful group of people we Sanatanis are. But we are the ones who are a constant barrage of abuses behavior. Totally false. You know and I know. But how do we go about it to correct that frame of reference?
Very good question, Vibhuti. First of all, we are not dhimmis. Dhimmi is a very racist Islamic term for non-Muslims.
It is. It is. It
And
is.
so we are not.
That's why I'm using to instigate a thought that we are not dhimmis, but we are behaving like one. Are we? That's the question. Yeah.
Actually, if you look at the response, you rightly said the word response, because we want to speak words that are responsible and backed by our character and backed by our integrity and honesty. These are the values we stand for, and we stand for truth. Now, truth is missing. That's why I said, ignore the barking dogs, because truth is missing from what they're saying. They're propagandists. They're not professors, they're propagandists. They have been given the position where they are, which they do not deserve, and which they need to be fired from that position, because they are indulging in a hateful racist campaign. And the reason is why I choose to say do not react and ignore them, because it is devoid of facts. More and more Americans, approximately 55 million Americans, practice yoga today. It was 30 million in 2017 or 2016, but now it has increased. There are 500,000 yoga teachers, almost, or more. I'm just saying a rough estimate. This is told to me by one of the leading yoga practitioners from East Coast. That's what they told me. So it's not my data, is done by the yoga teachers themselves. Now, so Sanatan Dharma is definitely the only option for USA if they want to retain, because when they say separating church from the state, that's what exactly secularism means. Now, but it's a fact of the life that no person can act responsibly without any culture. So if you separate the church from the state, what are they going to follow? A common law. Now, common law is Sanatan Dharma, because if you see that if anyone commits any crime, he has to be punished regardless of his faith. Regardless of it, that's what Sanatan Dharma stands for.
Right.
Every child needs to be educated in values. Now, moral values in most of the one book cultures are very, partial to themselves. It cannot help all. We have to have a culture which stands for all, not just for one community or the other. And Sanatan, that's why I say, if we practice teachings of Bhagavad Gita, practice, I'm not saying practice. Now, when we say we are the most peaceful society, I totally agree with you. But at the same time, we also know Yuddhe cha palayanam. We never fight shy from the battle. We don't go back from the battle. Yuddhe cha palayanam. So we have to practice both sides, because sometimes if you want to scare away a group of coyotes or wolves, you have to show some strength. You do not have to bite them, but you have to be ready to bite them and show your teeth. Otherwise, they won't go away. So in that way, we have to practice our dharma. Dharma doesn't mean peaceful, non-peaceful, or violent, non-violent. Dharma means a right action at the right time wherever the need is. So, so we have to, as a community, if we follow that, then we are not reacting, we are responding. So if somebody is spreading fake news against us, we have to talk about it and respond to them. And sometimes these people, they have not been exposed yet. They have not been exposed, and that's what they're scared of. So before we start exposing them, they want to silence us in the name of phobias, any kind of phobia. They'll say we cannot speak truth, but it's our duty to speak truth. And unfortunately, the American government and American lawmakers are getting weak in their knees because they're taking their money. And therefore, we have to stand up and say, we stand for truth, we will speak truth, and if you have a problem, refute us. Unless we start doing that, they are not going to stop. So dharma doesn't mean that when I say ignore, ignore means ignore the rebels that they are producing, but do not ignore the facts. You have to speak the facts. If you do not speak the facts, you are going to get cowed down by the faulty propaganda.
Absolutely correct. The fact and the truth that must be stated all the time. And as you very rightly said, that we have to respond, and we have to respond in a dharmic way. And you are absolutely right, because I share about dharmic wisdom to my Western audiences by sharing with them that intelligently, intrinsically, and intuitively, we all know when we are doing the good thing or the wrong thing. The good and wrong is just an explanation of thing, or the right or the wrong thing. And to protect and defend your own life and family, you have to even resort to violence to protect and defend. The violence in this moment is not defined as violence, but as to protect and defend whatever it takes to do, even if it leads to raising of shastra, because shastra without shastra, you can't protect. Both go concurrently with each other. So shastra and shastra are beautiful words, and dharma is, from that point of view, an essential word that every individual must practice, and we ought to be in the lead to teach the practices of dharma. As I always say, whether you are a vegan, vegetarian, or ahimsa ke param pujari, but if you are attacked, you have to arise and defend yourself. That's what the lesson of Mahabharata and Ramayana is, that even gods, Ram and Krishna, had to take or resort to war to protect dharma of those times. And that applies all the time. But here is another issue that comes about. You brought about the common law, right? And that's the definition of Sanatan Dharma, which is everybody is equal,
That's right.
right? Everybody is equal under the law. But democracy, being what it is the worst of the best available scenarios. This democracy itself is under question right now, because what bothers me, especially in the Indian context, and we can extend it elsewhere, that human rights is not available to Hindus in India. But those who are killing Hindus, they have all human rights to do what they're doing. There is no common law. How does one fix that? I mean, I take the theory from economics as demand and supply. Are 80% Hindus not demanding it? Or if their demand is there, why nobody is attending to that? That's the question which I'll seek your answer for.
See, one of the things which you raise a very good point. See, most of the Hindus, they have been so brainwashed by the media and the Bollywood, and the scarecrow tactics are being used, that somebody says my population is increasing. That is not true again. Population may be increasing, but good population is not increasing. So, the a culture cannot sustain itself on rabble rousers. A culture has to sustain itself on scholarliness and intellectualism and good behavior. No culture in the world has survived on bad behavior. The biggest example is the Roman Empire. It was all over the world except India, but except Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Bharat. It was not there. The rest of the world it was
You
controlling.
can say Akhanda Bharat.
But it is not there. It is not there now. So, and again, another example is British Empire. Was it made territorial gains, but it vanished in 90 years. That's it. That was the 90 years of the spread of the British Empire because they did not have behavior. Similarly, most of the other cultures are gradually vanishing. Like, for example, 60% of Americans don't want to go to a church because they see bad example. 60%. And the same is happening with more and more educated followers of Islam because they're leaving Islam in big numbers. There's a xmuslims.org, which is a big number. That has not happened in Sanatan Dharma. See, most of the other cultures, they retain their membership through force and through like a cult mindset. One way in, no way out. That's a cult mindset. Sanatan Dharma has a full freedom to get in and get out. That's why
Or
most of
just
the
be there. Just be there. That's
or
it.
just be there.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying it's a full freedom. I'm
Right.
not saying that you have to stay with me. If you want to leave, you can leave. But the point is, Sanatan Dharma is still strong. 155 countries in the world are gradually seeing the benefits of yoga, meditation, reincarnation, and vegetarianism. 155 countries. And it's a people's movement. So when you tell me about those people who are who are opposing us and democracy. Now, democracy, the word itself was invented to destroy the rights of the Native Americans. Because when the European settlers to USA became more in numbers than the Native Americans, they imposed democracy. They did not impose democracy before Native Americans were larger in numbers because they wanted to rule as per the European standards. So the word democracy itself is very destruction oriented. People do not know that because the democracy word was coined. The US Constitution was given by Iroquois tribe, the US Constitution, and that's what they adopted. So the Constitution of the First Nation was adopted as the Constitution of the United States. Now, the people do not understand that democracy was actually took away more rights from Native Americans than actually gave them. So if the origin is so racist and fraudulent, how can you see the good results later on? So the point is that the democracy, the majority rules, is a faulty concept because you can have majority of people with a criminal mindset and racism, and if they win, what is going to happen? Significant human rights violations. And you raise the point of human rights violations. Now, human rights of Hindus are considered not important because Hindus don't demand it. Human rights is a Western concept. It's not Indian concept. The Hindu concept is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The whole world is one family for the magnanimous. So if you're magnanimous, then you consider it as a whole family. But if you're small-mindedness, it is not your whole world is not a whole family. So we have to understand when we're dealing with a small-minded people, we have to act small-minded with them. It's like give and take. If you take my one eye, I'm going to take your two eyes. That's the principle of karma. So if we start doing that as a Hindu, then the human rights is automatically will be given to Hindus primarily because we know what to do. And believe me, the world's biggest fights are won by the Hindus only. People do not know. Pakistan has been trying to attack Hindus on the Islamic hatred for hundreds of years. And 70 years, I can say, when it is formed, not succeeded a single day. Chinese, not succeeded, So
you brought about the Chinese here, and you have stated some very powerful philosophical concepts, and majority of the people won't even be knowing about it because of your deep research you have done. You can confidently say 155 countries are adopting yoga meditation, and practices that are essentially Sanatani practices or Hindu practices, which you and I fortunately know, but our voices are not going to all the countries. But it is there. I agree with you on that. However, if I may point the caveat, is that people are trying to destroy us. People are politically, as the saying goes in an 80-20 rule, 20% people may believe in Sanatan or the eternal principles, but 80% are the barbarians at the gate who have their own selfish interests, who believe in only one book or one dictum. So the question is, there is always a battle of the good, which are few, vis-a-vis the bad, which are many. So look at China, for example. I'll take that example importantly. China, I find, is a very intriguing country. People talk about United States and India being natural partners. In reality, it ought to be China and India, because China is not a religious country. China doesn't have any religion. You may ascribe it to communism that doesn't accept, but Chinese are home to Buddhist monasteries. Japan, these are all open to Shaolin temples and whatever we know about it, right? So they are not religious practitioners. China has a strong anti-religious views and laws, but Christians are pouring in there to find a way to defeat that entire thing. The conversion thing is happening. So China, why is it inimical to India? In my opinion, they ought to be the two biggest natural allies. They ought to be. Unfortunately, China believes in the real pragmatic politics, that you can't keep two powerful swords in the same sheath. दो तलवारें एक म्यान में नहीं रह सकती हैं. So while China can withstand the threat of an economically powerful Taiwan or Japan or South Korea, it cannot take India lightly, because India is also an equally large country and has a democratic way of life, which I say Sanatani way of life. Actually, we Indians should say we are not democratic, we are Sanatanis. We are not religious, we are Sanatanis. And we must make this word popular and in practice, that our practices are Sanatani practices. So Chinese Global Times quoted the 100-year of celebration of formation of Chinese Communist Party, in which the President Xi said, "We refuse to be bullied." And I laughed. Look, the biggest bully is talking about not being bullied, of course. And then Global Times quoted them today morning, and I read that China's enemies will have their head broken and blood flowing against a great wall of steel. Now, when we are living in a real political world of this kind, do people have the time to listen to the good?
You raised some very good points here. First of all, I would like to make a very unpopular statement, and I do it with full of my knowledge and my understanding of the cultures. India and US are not natural partners. Number one.
Yes, you're right.
So people may be living in this denial, and the USIBC and other people, organizations, are saying we are natural partners. Maybe they are natural partners for mutual profit, but generally India is a civilizationally a different country completely.
Right.
The word Loktantra doesn't mean exploitation, whereas the word democracy means exploitation. It's just like, if I have more dollars in my pocket, I can bias every single politician in North America, and I can have them do what I have to do before their next election. Now, so not natural partners. Now, coming to China, the word Chin is mentioned in Mahabharata. It was existing before. Yavana are barbarians. They have always existed even during the time of Mahabharata. Malecha have always existed even during the time of Mahabharata. Today, they themselves call themselves one book culture, this book culture, that book culture. The same people. Mindset is the same. So if you think that Mahabharata times has changed today, not has changed. If you look from the Mahabharata times philosophy perspective, those people are still there. The Devtas and Danavas have been fighting from centuries, millennia, multi universes. They have been fighting, and it is a history that Devtas are always small in number. It is a history also.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why I don't get worried about these topics much, because people who say that we are getting finished, they don't know their Sanatan Dharma. They don't have not read Mahabharat. They not get Ramayana, because you just need one Ram. That's it. All the Rakshasas are gone. You just need one Arjun. Finish. So we believe in the excellence of an individual rather than the population of the. No, you can have a million sheep and one tiger. Who's going to control it? One tiger. So you don't need that. The whole thing that some people say we are going in population, increasing in population. That is a fake logic, fearful logic. That's the mentality of a sheep. Now, and actually, Khan means sheep in Mongolian language. Now, the coming to the China thing which you said, China has not invented anything in their entire community since the time of Mahabharata. They have not done anything. They have always stolen other people's technologies, wares, culture. Their everything has been taken from somewhere else. Like Lhasa, when the Islamic invaders destroyed Nalanda, Lhasa became the source of most of the Buddhist books from Nalanda. And one of the observations was, so Chinese are actually following the Sanatan Dharma culture, but the Communist Party of China has taken Kanik's instruction Yudhishthir more seriously. So they become the exploiters of China. So Communist Party of China is the one which is making all the demoniac Rakshasi rules against Hindus. Now their biggest thing is they teach their all their soldiers that Indians are very ugly looking and they are very brown, they are not high class, they are not intelligent. Now this kind of mindset they're giving to their own people is going to backfire them. See, I tell you one thing, when you tell a human being that you are superior, you are superior, you are superior, but when you then other person, and when you meet together in battle and you get beaten up very badly, then what happens? They start questioning themselves. So China is going to implode with this faulty logic. First of all, they are imploding with a two-child policy or one-child policy. Now they're going to implode with this superiority syndrome, where the common people are going to take over the Chinese Communist Party at one point of time or other. And it is going to be very, very violent. So Chinese are playing with fire. So as a Sanatan Dharma practitioner, we have to observe, but we have to follow our culture even more strongly.
Hmm.
And our culture says very clearly, very, very clearly, Bhagavad Gita says that we have to explain our culture to Yavana and Malecha also, either through sword or through instruction. The choice is theirs. If we do not do that, we are not following our dharma. It's not that something that I'm saying you have to do what you do. You have to follow your own dharma. And everyone has to follow their own dharma properly. And dharma means being in your natural state of existence. And if you want to learn, if you're in a dilemma of decision making, read Bhagavad Gita.
Uh, Very inspiring. And as an incorrigible optimist, I have always believed that we are here to stay. We are not going to go, because our principles, as science and technology is advancing, the fear and ignorance of religious imposed sanctions is going. We all know now that thunder and lightning doesn't happen because gods are angry. God didn't make Middle East into a desert because he was annoyed with them, or whatever. Each was a natural phenomenon of geography, of the natural interaction between various forces that has happened. However, there comes a particular point in time that we have to take stock of things, right? You said something very powerful, that we don't have to believe in numbers. We have to look at, there was one Ravan who was destroyed. His entire evil force was destroyed by one Ram, or Krishna, or Arjun, the valor, the leadership. Have the Hindus, have the Sanatanis lost that concept of leadership? Are we yearning for leadership? That's what is the biggest challenge. As a student of leadership and management, I realize that you are right. Every country, whether you are 1.3 billion person or 350 million like America, or a 50,000 people like an island, they have one president, one prime minister, right? There is one leader. The question arises in the real political platform is that, are Hindus losing that leadership that could fight? That's what we are looking at, looking towards. Hamara leader kaun hai abhi? Is there any leadership that you see in Hindu philosophy, in Sanatan philosophy, that can take what you said, the propagation of our dharma forward? Otherwise, what happens? You have very correctly said, they get directed by a herd mentality of following a book. The one German shepherd is shepherding the sheep, everybody going in the same direction. Are we looking for that leadership role? Where is that leadership role in Sanatan today?
Very good question. And I will again debunk one word here, leader.
Yeah, sure. Which word is that?
So, leader.
Leader.
Now,
Okay, that's what I
the,
did.
the leadership means the rest of the people are sheep, herd mindset again. So, Sanatan Dharma doesn't talk about leadership like that. There's a different parameter. Yad yad acharati shreshthas tatta deve tarojana. Sayat pramanam kurute. So the our principle of Sanatan Dharma is become a shresht. In Sanatan Dharma, if everyone follows the principles mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, everybody, like Satyam Priyahitam, whenever we speak to other people, we speak truthful, dear words, and for the benefit of others. Very simple.
Satyam Uvach, Priyam Uvach, and everything else. That's
Hitam.
very true.
Yes,
Very true.
very. So our behavior makes us shresht. So every Sanatan Dharma practitioner is a shresht, means he is already a superior by behavior. So we have forgotten this aspect. We get into the comparative mode and we start talking about leadership. They need leadership. Sanatan Dharma follower doesn't need leadership. They want to be shresht. They want to be well behaved. They have to be, in English word we can call completely gentlemanly. Like they speak truthful words, they behave truthfully, and they act truthfully. This is what called Shrestha. It is different from leadership. Leadership is a Western concept to subjugate their own people. We all know the history of church. Church has killed more Christians than anyone else. We all know the question Ummah, the Islamic global thing. They have killed their own people more than others.
Right.
That's why their own people are coming out. So, but in Sanatan Dharma, that has never happened, because the training is given through samskara to become a Shrestha by ideology, by behavior. And believe me, the best warriors are those who are very gentle in their behavior. You will never see a good soldier being looting the shops or fighting with his guns and showing off. No, good soldier is always disciplined because they have a control over their mind and their senses. So Sanatan Dharma is the philosophy of the warriors, not just picking up arms, but in good behavior, good character, good personality. Therefore, it is already automatically attractive. So we do not have to follow their model and create an artificial leader, show some confidence in speaking and all those things. Those things are byproducts.
No, just to be clear, just to be clear, I was not talking about a leader like Napoleon or Hitler or Churchill or anything. No, I'm not a believer in that. I'm saying leadership as a content.
Right.
Leadership as a content. You said it very correctly. It is our actions that define us, which is what I tell all the people. That in our Hindu philosophy, if the rest of the world wants to have peace, they have to follow only one tenet of Hinduism and Sanatan principles.
That's right.
And that is respect and acceptance.
See, our culture is very different. Our culture is Sanatan Dharma means giving all respect to others, expect nothing in return.
Right.
That's what our culture is.
Correct.
And that's how we become Shresht. And so now we are not imposing ourselves on anyone.
Right.
But at the same time, we are inviting them to become Shresht. So you should also become Shresht like us. But that comes only.
There's a one nice example of Shresht. I talked to one of my Muslim friends. He asked me, तुम लोग इतनी बार पूजा नहीं करते हो, मंदिर नहीं जाते हो. How can you be religious? And I said, it's not about how many times you pray in a day that makes you religious or a good human being. It's your actions that define you. And I gave him an example that he's a very dear friend of mine. He's a Muslim guy. And I said, think about it. Your guy does 5 times namaz, straps bomb on his body, blows up innocent people in wherever public street that is. 10 die, 50 are injured. I'm driving by. I picked up 5 people in my truck or car. I take them to the hospital, save their lives. So, from your definition, who is Khuda ka banda? Main ya tumhara banda? And he says, Hasab, you make a point. You are the Khuda ka banda. So I said, that's where it is. It's eventually our actions that define us. My question here is that, generally speaking, that we Hindus have lost our path. Will that statement be holding true in this 21st century, as I see it in America particularly? In America, what I notice in various forums and my interactions, there is tremendous amount of energy in Indians in this part of the world, Hindus specifically. Tremendous amount of energy. They are aware, they have the wherewithal, but they are confused. कहाँ जाएं, किससे बात करें, who do we talk to, how do we reach out? So there is a need for a leadership in that sense, that somebody who can be the source of inspiration to do the what can I do. So there is a definite lag here which needs to be channeled. But there's another thing very important. Majority of the Indians are very active in the political field. They know what is happening. So the constant barrage of attacks that is happening on India and things Hindu is making them wonder, are we really that bad as the world is telling us to be? That's not true. And that awareness is coming up more and more. How do we channel that? How do we put the whole thing together? That's the meaning of leadership that I'm talking about. Like you and I are here talking about, we are performing a leadership role in bringing forth the issues, building the narrative. This is the last question of the day.
So first of all, I do not see that Hindus have lost the way.
Okay.
Because personally, the reason why I say is that, but definitely one thing has happened is that most of the Hindus, they have been told so many negative things about themselves.
Right.
And the colonial mindset has destroyed their own faith in their own books. But there are a good number of Hindus I know, a large number of Hindus, who are very strong in their belief, like yourself and many other leaders in this community, Shresth in this community, where they are actually doing what they're supposed to do. And so I do not think so that has happened. Secondly, Hindus have to understand that Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is the mindset of a magnanimous person, not of a small-minded person. So the small-minded person is going to think about his pockets more than anything else. So when a magnanimous person has to deal with a small-minded person, he has to come down to the level of small-minded person and talk and negotiate. The Western world is, especially this society, is built on exploitation. And if you do not stand your own ground, you will be exploited. Therefore, the US Constitution doesn't guarantee your safety, but it guarantees you carry all the equipment necessary to retain your safety. Okay, so the point is the police is going to react, but before that you have to act. So the somewhere or the other, Hindus have forgotten to take inspiration from their own principal book, Bhagavad Gita, and depending on others to guide them, which should be the other way around. They should be taking guidance from Bhagavad Gita and they should be teaching others also the same book. And that's where the mindset is going to change. You will not be able to fight an enemy with the weapon of the enemy. It is a classical military theory. You have to have the weapons of your own, which is our culture, our shastra, and our mindset. And that is we have to make it out prominent. We have to always say that is Sathology and this is mythology, or that is mythology and this is Sathology. That's how you start questioning. And if we do not question, the America is a mantra, the duck which quacks the loudest gets a cracker. That's what happens here. Mm-hmm. So we have to start quacking more, at individual level, collective level, and we have to also make others quack in fear that yes, these guys are going to quack. So we got to stay away from these quacks.
That is brilliant. And I've really enjoyed this wonderful conversation today. And before closing, I would make something that Aditya talked about quacking. You know, I was told by a senator long ago, and I often share that because some things need to be repeated so that it makes an impact. So a senator once told me that we love you Indians as immigrants to this country. You are professionals, you are hardworking, you are educated, you are in the highest median income, you are least problem from a law and order perspective, other than occasional white collar crimes. You look after your family, you have family values, you look after your children, you give them good education, and you ask for nothing. That's what Aditya ji was talking about, that we have to begin to engage. And one of the ways to engage is to be participating in every level of your community life, whether it's Parents Teachers Association. Begin from there. Check what is happening in schools. Have you ever realized that 80% of Indians are Democratic Party supporters only because perhaps they live in democratic run states? California, New York, New Jersey, Washington, Seattle, places like this. Majority of them are democratic states. These are the places where Hinduism is under severe attack, whether it is our symbol, swastik, or our educational part of it in California education system. You have to begin to get engaged with the process at any level that you want to be, community level, school level, and be assertive. I quote Swami Vivekananda's statement, arise, awaken, and assert. And the fourth A that I added to that is act. Because knowledge by itself means nothing if we are not applying it in our daily life. And that's the message which I want to end this conversation with today. Get engaged, learn more. And as once a wonderful person told me, that Hindus in India need to study Bhagavad Gita and Ramayana and Mahabharata, need to study, not read, but to study, because all values are there. All our Sanatan principles are stated remarkably beautifully out there. I have cared to read, I care to study. And I'll tell you something. There was one shloka of Bhagavad Gita that changed my life. Every one of us goes through a despondent time. We have frustration, we feel beaten, just like Arjun was in the battlefield. But I was defeated like that until my guru told me, when I said to him that I feel really despondent and defeated, he said, go read chapter 2, shlok 3, Klevyam. When I read that, I went deep into that and I realized that no, I'm no longer helpless. It's up to me to fight my own life, my own terms, on my own terms. I emerged. I would urge you, all of you, to study Bhagavad Gita and Ramayana. Happy 4th of July. Thank you, Aditya ji, for an exhilarating conversation. And I hope this message reaches to many more. It's all up to us.